Warnings: there are no triggers discussed in depth, but there are very brief mentions of various healthcare providers and of trauma. There is also a list of risk factors for folks to be considered under-resourced or having wealth issues. Hello, everyone, and every being. It is so exciting to present to you all for the second time in as many years, and I am very honored to be your keynote speaker this Saturday. We are the Esoteric, and I am Prism, your sole presenter from us for this year. For this presentation, there will be slides shown with bullet points of what I am saying. This will be teal and purple text on a cream-colored background on the right side, with a video of me on the left side. Our body is white, with short brown hair that sticks up in a point on top, a short brown beard and mustache, and brown eyes. I am wearing black glasses, a royal blue polo shirt, and an amethyst necklace, a purple stone wrapped in a black cord. I am in front of a tapestry with mushrooms on it. As a system, we identify as activists, community organizers, and mutual aid workers, as well as plural, transgender, queer, neurodivergent, disabled, low income, and with a history of being unhoused, but specifically in the sense of not having a permanent home and staying with friends and family. We have never had a time without a roof over our heads. Some of these things are more relevant to how we see ourselves, and some give context relevant to our presentation. Our presentation's title is Revolutionary Altruism, Mutual Aid as a Transformative Uprising. The title slide shows two hands of different skin tones clasping each other, as though one were pulling the other upwards, on the background of a yellow circle with teal stars. Purple and teal text reads, 2026 Plural Positivity World Conference, The Esoteric Present, Revolutionary Altruism, Mutual Aid as a Transformative Uprising. In this presentation, I will start by defining what some of these words and phrases mean to us, share some of our work in this field, share what we have learned from this work and how it might apply to creating your own mutual aid efforts, especially if you're interested in bringing mutual aid to the plural community in some form. I'll talk about accepting mutual aid, why that might be hard, and how we might overcome it. And finally, I will share my biggest dreams in the mutual aid area. It is my hope that the lessons we've learned will help some of you get involved in ways you enjoy, that are accessible and meaningful for you, that will benefit you and others. First, definitions and explanations of the title, because I'm using uncommon words and phrases. Revolutionary means causing a dramatic change, and it's not only related to politics, though that may be where you've heard it the most. Altruism is the opposite of selfishness. It's caring about the well-being of others when their well-being doesn't necessarily affect your own well-being. Mutual aid is a collective effort in a community to provide support or assistance. This comes up a lot when there is an emergency or around discussions of under-resourced folks, which is a kind of umbrella term for folks who don't have homes, jobs, access to transportation, bathrooms, or shelter, or any combination of those and more. Transformative means causing a change in someone or something. Uprising means an act of resistance or rebellion, or rising up to a higher position, a higher standard, a higher ground. So if we put words together, what does revolutionary altruism mean? You might find that your personal definition ends up different from mine, but for me, revolutionary altruism is a radical choice, an active choice, to care for others even when it doesn't affect my own well-being, and to let that care guide the actions that I take in my life, so that all of the interconnected actions, taken by a lot of different folks put together, cause a dramatic change in the world. A change in the way different groups of people are seen and treated. A change in the way organizations take action to help people. A change in the way our elected officials vote, and therefore a change in the way the government helps people. Revolutionary altruism, for me, is about actively choosing to change the world for the better. It will never be fast. It will never be something I am doing alone. It has to be a community effort, but it can start with me. It's about listening to my heart and soul, about knowing my values and sticking to them. That's what guides me towards these acts of revolutionary altruism and away from acts of cruelty or indifference or ignorance. And as a part of a plural system, listening to my heart and soul also means listening to my headmates. Our values are all very similar, but they're not identical. Same with our priorities. There have been times when one of us has wanted to pick up a particular project, but others have wanted a different project. When we disagree on something like that, we have all agreed to try to understand why we're disagreeing. Sometimes it's a clash in values. Sometimes one of us has overlooked some aspect of a project that might make it a higher or lower priority. And sometimes one headmate says to another, "That's a really important project, but I don't think we're the best fit for it. Let's leave it to someone else." I mentioned earlier that we identify as activists, community organizers, and mutual aid workers. Let me give you some background on what we do and what those words mean to us. We see these terms as very intertwined, at least in how we approach them, but I'll try to tease them apart a bit. As activists, we look for causes that matter to us, whether they do or have affected us personally or not. Once we have a cause, or several causes, in mind, we look for ways that we can do something about the cause. Activist has the word action built right into it. It's not enough to care about it. It's not enough to think about it. You have to do something about it. Some of what we do is lower effort work for us, like writing petitions that someone else walks around to collect signatures on, or sitting at home creating a poster for a business that someone else has talked to and gotten their agreement to hang up, or spreading the word among our networks about a planned march or rally. Some of what we do is middle effort work for us, like calling our elected officials to advocate for issues, or meeting directly with small groups that have some power to help, or researching and writing grants for a nonprofit we volunteer with. And then some of what we do is high effort work for us, like speaking at events. We consider ourselves baby community organizers, meaning only that we are relatively new to it and not that we have any less value than other organizers. Our first real community organizing is a mutual aid fair we are currently creating for this summer. We have played a role in organizing many community events in the past, but only a relatively small role for each. This is the first time we are taking the lead. We consider community organizing to be playing a role, however large or small, in creating a community effort to engage and empower folks within that community. While it is often used to describe things in the political and decision-making realms, we personally apply it more broadly. This would include engaging and empowering folks within their own lives and their community. To us, this includes bonding community through shared meals, mutual aid fairs, employing folks with lived experience to use that lived experience to benefit others in the situation, and so much more. Finally, When we say that we are mutual aid workers, it means that we work with and for mutual aid organizations, as well as being actively involved in some informal mutual aid networks. These are just groups of people with similar interests and/or identities who are all committed to being there for each other in the ways that we can. This benefits us all, both with physical resources and socially. For example, we've shared pet supplies with others. We've gotten screws needed to hang something on the wall. And each network that I'm in tries to get together monthly just for fun. As a system, we've had to prioritize our work because we only have so much time in the day. We've been volunteering for the Plural Association, or TPA, for 4.5 years now. We're part of 3 informal mutual aid networks, and we do a lot of work with a local anti-poverty nonprofit that focuses on community building, educating the public about the realities of poverty, rescuing and serving food that restaurants would otherwise throw out, and a number of other initiatives. I'll call this one API, but I won't name it fully to protect our location. At API, we are one of 3 founding members of the advocacy team, which meets monthly to coordinate the projects we're each heading up and see how we can support each other. As I record this video, I am organizing 2 different initiatives for API. One is a partnership with my university to involve students in the required writing class by having one of API's poverty educators visit the classrooms to talk about their lived experiences and the things API is trying to accomplish. Then we're asking the students to practice writing formal letters to City Council on these topics for class credit, in the hopes that they send them. The second project is the Mutual Aid Fair, tentatively scheduled for July with hopes to become a regular thing. I do have a teammate for this project, so shout out to him. In some ways, this project is easy because API already has a lot of community partnerships and knows of other community organizations doing similar work. But in other ways, it's really hard. Our city has never had a mutual aid fair before. The closest mutual aid fair we can find is over 2 hours away, and we weren't even able to visit them the day that they were hosting it. We have been reaching out to mutual aid fair organizers across the country to interview them and learn from them, and they've been so generous with their time and so happy to share the lessons they have learned from their experiences. But it can be hard to take all that advice and put it together into a useful how-to guide for ourselves, not least because sometimes 2 people will say the exact opposite thing. Now, keep in mind that the Mutual Aid Fair has not taken place yet. It isn't even fully planned, but I've still been learning from the process. We also work with the fundraising committee at API to identify and write grants. We've created some graphic visualizations for API's different accomplishments to help support grant applications. And sometimes we volunteer in a more traditional capacity, but that is difficult for us due to our disabilities. With TPA, we have taken on a number of roles over the years, including moderating the community, text chats, video meetups, and events, hosting and presenting at this type of event, posting weekly prompts in up to 3 associations within the private community and up to 2 weekly private chats over time, creating over 100 graphics for the private community, and more. These roles are very different from what we've done for API, but we've still learned from them. And some of what we've learned here, we've used with API, and vice versa. This overlap is the inspiration for this presentation. If so many of our lessons learned apply to both online plural work and in-person anti-poverty work, they might well apply to a variety of other work that some of you are interested in taking on. Here's what I've learned so far. I'm going to lay it out in a way that I think is generalized enough to be accessible no matter what kind of community organizing you're thinking about doing. However, I'm going to also talk about applying these lessons to organizing something in the plural realm to illustrate. Lesson 1. It will be hard. It will start out feeling overwhelming and hard beyond belief, and sometimes outright impossible. Sit with that feeling. Appreciate that feeling. The fact that it's hard, but that you still want to do it, means that it is worthwhile. And it won't always be that hard. It gets easier every time you do it. Lesson 2. Sometimes you will see a need and you will want it to be met, and you may believe that you're the only ones who are able to do something about it. You are not the only ones, or at least you will not always be. Others will join you. Every effort needs someone's to start it. You can be those someones. You may not be the only ones. There may be others working on the same thing that you don't know about yet. You can always find them and join forces. There may also be others who want to work on that need, but aren't sure where to start. Lesson 3. Sometimes you will see a need and you will want it to be met, and you will realize that you cannot do something about it. There are more needs in this world than there are hours in the day. It is not a failing to see a need and not do something about it. It is being realistic, and it is being kind to yourself. 3A. Be kind to yourself, please. Recognize your limits. Honor your limits. Whether these are physical, mental, emotional, or social limits, or anything else, recognize and honor them. Do not push yourself past your limits trying to serve others. Every body will have its limits. Every brain will have its limits. Every headmate will have their limits. And each of those limits are different. Find your limits, and then don't run yourself right up to the edge of them. For example, if 2 hours of social activities is your absolute limit before you need to curl up in a ball in the dark all alone, try honoring your limits by only allowing yourself an hour and a half of those social activities so that you're not as negatively impacted. Now, for us, it's helpful to write these limits down. This serves as both a reminder and as accountability. At this point, I'd like to refer you to our presentation from last year. It's called Fill All the Cups, a Plural Approach to Resilience. It can be found on YouTube on the Plural Events channel or by searching the title. There's also a link to it on this slide. If you watch that, we talk a lot about how to identify things that empty your cup and things that fill your cup. Once you have a list of things that fill your cup, you can make sure you're honoring yourself or yourselves and taking care of yourselves by refilling your cups when they start to get low. If or when you get close to emptying your cup by working on mutual aid, find ways to refill it. And maybe working on the mutual aid project will fill your cup. Or maybe some parts of it will fill your cup and other parts will empty your cup. Or maybe you will even find that the work fills one cup while emptying another at the same time. For example, it might empty your social capacity cup but fill your emotional cup, or vice versa, depending on what you're doing and how you and your cups work. Now, as I said, it is not a failing to see a need and not be able to do something about it. You have to be kind to yourself when that happens. But how do you know when that's the case? 3B, pick your passion. Choose one thing at a time. One thing that needs doing, that you are capable of doing, and that you care deeply about. If it needs doing and you're capable of doing it, but you don't care deeply about it, You may not do as good a job at it as someone who does care deeply. If it needs doing and you care deeply about it, but you're not capable of doing it for any reason at all, then consider telling someone who can do it about your ideas and releasing control of it. And if it doesn't need doing, even if you can do it and care deeply about it, if there's not a need for it, there's probably not going to be a lot of participation in it. So it's my opinion that you really need all three parts there. Specifically within plural mutual aid and activism, there are so many things that you might choose to do. Some folks find that their passion is reaching out to healthcare systems, hospitals, doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, and more, and educating them on plural positive approaches. Some folks find their passion in advocating for plurals in non-healthcare spaces. Some folks' passion might be creating plural positive media representations. And some might feel drawn to creating an in-person plural support and mutual aid group. From here on, I'm going to use that last example, creating an in-person plural support and mutual aid group, to illustrate everything else I say. But I do honestly believe that it can be applied to any of the other ideas I listed, as well as other ideas that we hadn't had. You can find your passion, and you can look for ways to apply these thoughts I'm sharing to your passion. And if something doesn't apply, every situation is different. Take what you can from my thoughts, add your own thoughts to it, and we believe in you. You got this. 3C, find your helpers. No person and no system can do it alone, whatever it is. You may need someone to reality check you. You may need someone to bounce ideas off of. You may need someone to delegate tasks to. You may need someone to say, hey, have you thought about this or that important thing? You cannot think of everything, and you cannot do everything. Please don't burn yourself out trying to do everything. So if you're building an in-person support and/or mutual aid group for plurals, you might need someone to say, hey, some systems may not feel comfortable meeting there because of trauma. Or to ask how you plan to afford something you'd need to pay for. Or to have ideas about how to run the whole shebang that you haven't thought of yet. Your helpers can be great supports by thinking things through with you and bringing their own perspectives to the table. By encouraging you when you get overwhelmed or down. And by taking on some tasks so that you're not trying to do it all alone. These helpers can be external folks, and they can be your headmates. As I said, every body, every brain, and every headmate has their limits. So allow your helpers to help. After all, the entire point of a support or mutual aid group is to help each other. That applies just as much to the planning of it as it does to actually carrying it out. Lesson 4. If you build it, they will come. 4A. This means that if you pull off a mutual aid fair held together with shoestrings and wishful thinking, people who need mutual aid services will come. People who need community will come. Even if they don't know about it the first time, keep at it, and they will come. If you start a nonprofit community for plurals, they will come out of the woodwork and join, even if it takes some of them years to find you. Whatever the need is that you've identified, the people who need it will find you. You may have to advertise some, talk to people, hang up flyers, whatever that looks like. But after a while, word of mouth and internet searches can also bring folks to you. Remember, when you're pulling this together, everyone has something they need, and everyone has something they can offer. One person might need a safe place to shower, and they can give some amazing haircuts. The next person might need a haircut, and they can donate money to purchase supplies or food. A third person needs that food, And they can help someone fix their bicycle so that they could get to work faster and more easily. Who knows what might get offered and what might be needed? At this point, I would like to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a psychology theory that puts basic needs of folks in an order. It's often drawn as a pyramid, with the first level, the foundational needs, on the bottom. The idea is that you have to have the first need met before you can work on the second need, and so on. The first level on the bottom is physiological needs: food, water, shelter, sleep. The second level is safety needs. The third level is love or belonging or community connection. The fourth level is esteem. And the top level is self-actualization. What does this mean for creating an in-person plural support group? First, the physiological needs. You don't know what folks' lives are like outside of the support group, so you can't assume that everyone does or does not have these needs met. If you are able, it might be nice to try to offer a way to meet some of those needs. Have your meetings indoors, in a physically accessible location, maybe on a bus line, as well as having ramps. Offer food and drinks, or at least try to get somewhere that has a water fountain and a safe restroom. For safety, consider both physical and mental or emotional safety. The restroom should absolutely have a lock, and it would be awesome if it had space for someone to take a large bag in with them. What if that bag holds all of their belongings in the world? Single stall is helpful for a lot of folks. So many plurals are transgender or otherwise uncomfortable sharing a multi-stall restroom. It can feel safer if you have that bag with all of your belongings. And it provides the ability for someone to go splash water on their face, to take a deep breath and calm their nervous system without others coming in, if that's what they need. Safety also ties into things like maybe avoiding meeting in a church or another location that might be commonly connected to trauma for plurals. A support group naturally provides the community connection and belonging of that third level, but how can you encourage this feeling? Personally welcome every many as they come in. Have introductions at the beginnings of meetings, where folks are welcome to use any name they want to, introduce themselves by a system name, introduce one headmate, introduce multiple headmates, or any which way they feel most comfortable. Ask for pronouns. Maybe have some clearly expressed agreements on which topics are open for discussion at any particular meeting, so that someone can avoid a meeting that includes a triggering topic, but attend other meetings where that topic isn't allowed. Of course, these are just some of my ideas. They may not all work for you and your meetings, and you will probably have other, even better ideas. I did mention advertising, and this is tricky when you're trying to get together an in-person plural support group. One approach is to have the meetings open to people who are questioning, singlet allies, curious singlets looking for education, etc. Another approach is to only have the meetings open to plurals. There are pros and cons to each, and I am not here to tell you how to do it in the slightest. I just want to acknowledge that there are some really hard decisions to make. Once you have an overall idea of what your mission is, you can use that mission to guide each decision you make. If you have a group of helpers or people interested in giving feedback, you can also ask them for input on these decisions. But if you build it, they will come. Not all at once, not all to the first meeting, not even all to the 100th meeting, but they will come. They will offer what they have to offer, and they will need what they need. Have faith that you will be able to match offerings to needs, one way or another. 4B. The second part of if you build it, they will come, is that if you pull this together, People who need to help others will also come. Organizations will come to have a table at a mutual aid fair. Volunteers will come to do everything from hanging up a few flyers to providing first aid to doing your taxes. People who want to help organize your idea bigger and better for the next time will come. People you can delegate smaller tasks to will come and volunteer. It can be hard to give up control of your idea by delegating. It takes trust in others. Trust that they will follow through on their word. Trust that they will stick to your guiding mission and principles. It can even be hard sometimes to have someone volunteer to help in a way that you hadn't thought needed to be done. It is not a negative reflection on you that you hadn't thought of everything. Instead, it's a positive reflection on you because you have inspired folks to think of new ways that they can help and volunteer their time. Lesson 5. You are not the first. Even if your idea is completely novel, like a worldwide nonprofit for plurals, there will almost always be someone who has had an idea similar enough to yours that you can look at their work, model some things on it, learn from their mistakes, and make it your own. There are other nonprofits. There are other support groups. There are other mutual aid fairs. The idea does not have to be identical to have things that you can use. And, most importantly, it is completely fair game to learn from others. It is encouraged. So many folks out there in the world will be happy to talk with you about their experiences and share their hard-earned wisdom to help you be successful. Specifically for an in-person plural support group, you might want to take lessons from both online plural groups and in-person support groups for other minority populations, especially invisible minorities. By that, I mean minorities that might not be identified by a quick visual look at a person, such as queer groups, trans groups, neurodivergent groups, mental health groups, groups for people with specific invisible disabilities. These groups might face some similar challenges, like how do we have the invitations to the group broad enough to include everyone we want to invite, while also being narrow enough to keep our folks safe? From the online plural groups, such as the Plural Association, you can learn things like common triggers among plurals. Not universal triggers, of course, but common ones that can help you build a list of topics that you may not want to discuss at certain meetings. You can learn how these groups keep their members safe while still reaching out to get more members, just like you can from those listed in-person groups. The approach you take might not be the same that either of those take, but there are definitely lessons you can learn and ideas you can get from both types of sources. The one thing I've seen above all else while planning this mutual aid fair is that the people who have had a hand in planning other fairs are pretty much universally excited to share their experiences with us as soon as I explain to them what we are trying to accomplish. They are so encouraging. They have wisdom I didn't expect, things I'd never considered. They want to help. Not all of them have as much time to help as others, but they all want to be a part of it, even if their last mutual aid fair was years ago, and I can learn from all of them. I'm sure that as time goes on, I'll find someone less willing to help. That's the nature of humanity, everyone is different, so just keep in mind that not everyone will be eager. The closer your idea is to theirs, the more likely they are to want to help. So perhaps focus on the similarities if and when you approach someone for their wisdom. Lesson 6. Perfection is not the goal. Perfection is not required. Progress can be made with so much less than perfection. Okay, honestly, I am learning that lesson with regards to so many things in my life. But it definitely applies to creating mutual aid spaces and support group spaces and more. 6A. The first step is to release perfectionism. Embrace good enough as a mindset. Do your best work and know that that is enough, that you are enough. Trust me, I know that releasing perfectionism is much easier said than done. But part of this is also releasing control and trusting in your teammates, both internal and external. Trust that when you delegate a task and they accept it, they will do it. Trust that they will have good ideas that mesh well with yours, or that if you don't like the idea or don't think it fits your vision, you can have a positive and constructive conversation about it. Trust that when you ask them to look over something, they will pay attention to catch big errors. Release the need for everything to be perfect, because if you don't, you may be tempted to try to micromanage and control everything, which does not show trust in your teammates. I touched on this a little bit earlier and tied trust into giving up control. Perfectionism makes me want to control everything. There's a little voice in my head saying that if I let someone else do it and it's not perfect, it's all my fault for letting someone else do it. That voice is not helpful. Control and micromanaging damage relationships. Support groups and mutual aid rely on building good relationships. Functioning together as a system, even when you're not building mutual aid or support groups, relies on building good internal relationships. If you can focus on building relationships and embracing the good enough, I believe that is the first big step to making your idea come to life in a real way. 6B, you have to start somewhere. This means two things, really. First, you have to start. The first step is often the hardest. It feels big and scary to make an idea start to become a reality. It is absolutely okay to have help at this stage, at any stage, whether that's help with the planning and execution of the idea, or someone to encourage you, or both. Second, there is always going to be room for improvement. Don't focus on something being just right the first time. Focus on getting it out there, and then focus on making it better for the future. You can't get something started if you're constantly trying to make it perfect before you release it or announce the event. You have to accept that it won't be perfect. But it's much better for something to happen imperfectly than to never happen at all. And how do we make something better for the future? Personally, I have a 5-step process because I'm a nerd, and that process may or may not work as well for others as it does for me. So take what you want from it and leave the rest. Step 1. Reflect on what went well and what went less well. Write it down after the event so you don't forget, or write things down as you notice them, as long as it doesn't distract you from really enjoying and appreciating your efforts. Don't try to fix things in the moment, unless it's something obvious and easy like changing a light bulb that just went out. Just notice things, make note of them, and keep moving. Step 2. When you have a chunk of time, sit down and pull out your list of things that went well and things that went less well. This is your brainstorming time. If it went well, what made it so great? Can you learn anything from that part and apply it to a different part to make that better? If it didn't go so well, what went wrong? How can you change it for the future? At this stage, write down as many ideas as you can think of, and I challenge you not to cross any of them out. Ask your headmates, as well as your external team members, for their input as well. Remember, everyone has something to offer. Everyone has a valid perspective. Not every suggestion will work out, but every suggestion is worth listening to. Every person and every being is worth listening to. Step 3. Play out each idea in your head. Sometimes my system will pretend to be other folks, so we can role play a scenario. That role play helps us look at the ideas that we've generated and predict how they will turn out in the future. Take notes on how things go in these imaginary futures. Step 4. Choose which ideas you can implement. They may not be your favorite ideas, but sometimes our favorite ideas aren't accessible. Like, as much as we would love to build affordable housing for every person in our city, we don't have that kind of money. So that idea is wonderful, but completely inaccessible. You may decide to only implement one good idea at a time, or you may be able to use a few at a time. Just make sure that you don't use all of your ideas at once, or you won't be able to tell which idea helped and which didn't. Step 5. Put your plan into action. And when you do, go back to the start of this process and notice how things go. Did your idea help? Learn from what you see. It's a never-ending process when you're trying to improve something. Now, this is a process that we have used our entire life, but we did take some of this from one of our class textbooks because it articulated the process into clear steps very well. So credit where credit is due. That book is called Horngren's Cost Accounting, A Managerial Emphasis by Srikant M. Datar and Madhav V. Rajan. And I do apologize if I have mispronounced either name. All right. So there's my spiel on how to get started participating in and organizing mutual aid. But what about those of us who aren't the organizers? What about those of us who are seen as potential recipients of mutual aid? We can't all be organizers. Even all of the headmates in one system are unlikely to all be organizers. And even those of us who are organizers can't always be organizers. I'm sure there are some of you in the audience today who have benefited from mutual aid or community organizing, just like we have. As much as I just spent time telling folks that sometimes the organizing is hard, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that it is hard on both sides of the coin. First, I'd like to acknowledge that there are many risk factors for a body to end up being under-resourced. And so many folks in the plural community have multiple of these risk factors. Some of these risk factors include race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status of your ancestors, education level, chronic illness and disability status, whether physical, mental, emotional, or so on, having a job with low pay and/or few hours, high cost of health care, living near a war or armed conflict, or even being involved in the conflict, experiencing one or more natural disasters, food insecurity, high housing costs where you are, facing misogyny, whether you are female or just seen that way, being transgender and facing that kind of gender discrimination, being any type of queer, not having reliable access to clean water, not having reliable sanitation, not having affordable electricity or other utilities, and so much more. And of course, many of these feed into each other. For example, if you have chronic illnesses or disabilities, your healthcare costs are usually higher, which means that you may not be able to afford to go to the doctor every time you need to, which can make your chronic illnesses and disabilities worse. If your education level is lower, you're more likely to have a lower paying job with shorter hours, which means you're less likely to have the funds to go back to school and increase your education level. There are government programs in many countries designed to help people who are under-resourced for whatever reason, but we all know that they're not perfect. Folks fall through the cracks. Folks don't receive what they're qualified for. What they are qualified for isn't enough to meet their basic needs. Honestly, it's disheartening. When your government doesn't seem to care enough to give you what you need just to survive, it makes it harder to reach out for help from other sources. After all, the government has to help you, and others don't. At least that's a mindset we've had before, and it did prevent us from reaching out. Asking for help is hard. Accepting help is hard. There are so many reasons for this. Sometimes it's not knowing where to look or who to ask. Sometimes it's how the people with power over us talk and act, what they allow or discourage. Sometimes it's the messages we hear about ourselves from society. Sometimes it's how we were raised. Often, it's all of the above, and it's internalized, and that makes it hard to fight against. Asking for and accepting help is hard for almost everyone. It can cause feelings of shame. It can make you think that you're less than someone else who didn't need the same help that you know of. It can make you afraid, especially in the current political and social climate in many places, that if you ask for or accept help, you'll be brought to the attention of people whose attention you really don't want. I am not discounting those fears. They are real, and they are big, and I do not have the answers for them. I am not discounting your feelings. They are valid, and I will never tell you otherwise. I have experienced many of the same thoughts and feelings. I will say that they can get in the way of asking for or accepting help that we need. How can we resist these thoughts and feelings and open ourselves to getting the help that we need and deserve? There are some things that we have thought about that have influenced our thoughts and feelings and fears. I will share those just to see if that helps you at all. First, have you heard the phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps? It's commonly used, at least in the United States, to tell people that they need to get themselves out of situations without help from others. It's said a lot to people experiencing poverty. But here's the trick about that phrase. It was not meant that way when it was first said. In the late 1800s, it was entirely sarcastic. So bootstraps are the little loops on the backs of the boots that you pull on to get your boot on your foot. If you have your boots on and you are standing on the ground and you pull on your bootstraps, you're not going to move. It takes someone else who has a firm footing to lift you up by those bootstraps. So pull yourself up by your bootstraps was a way of saying you can't do this alone. And the truth is, none of us can do everything alone. Every single human body on this planet needs help at one point or another. Second, have you ever helped someone with something, no matter how big or small? How did that make you feel? It usually feels good to me to help someone else. So whenever I am struggling and need help and don't feel like I should ask for help, I try to remember that I'm doing the other person a favor in a way. By giving them the chance to help me, I am giving them the chance to feel that good feeling. Third, think about the times that you have felt comfortable asking for or receiving help. It's easier for us when the other people around us are also getting help. So then maybe it's worth thinking about accepting help as a way to show the folks around us that they're not alone, that it's okay to get help. So accepting help is a type of gift that we're giving to the other folks who need help. Fourth, and this is kind of a tricky one, so please bear with me. If I am always giving help, but never taking help, something is out of balance. Something is out of balance in me, because I probably need something, but something is out of balance in the world around me as well. Other folks will notice. They might start to believe that I think I don't need help because I'm always giving and never receiving. They might even think that I think I'm better than them because they do receive help. I'm not saying that the helper always thinks that they're better. I'm not saying they ever think that they're better. But that is one impression that could be given off unintentionally. If you're the chronic giving type, it's just something to be aware of. I also want to acknowledge here that this kind of chronic giving is deeply complex, and it is often rooted in its own trauma, and I have not fully explored it here. Addressing this would take careful consideration on a personal level. There are going to be times when you need to receive more than you give, and there are going to be times when you give more than you receive, and that is okay. I'm talking more about overall lifelong balance. It's just something to keep in mind. In summary, there are so many barriers to receiving help, from not having access to it, to internalized messages from authority figures and society as a whole. I don't have a magic formula for how to overcome these barriers. Hopefully, access will come as more folks get involved in organizing mutual aid. Hopefully, some of the thoughts I just shared will help you with overcoming your barriers. And honestly, overcoming internalized messages sounds like a topic for a whole new presentation and not one that I feel qualified to give. So back to the title of the presentation. Revolutionary Altruism, Mutual Aid as a Transformative Uprising. Why is that the title? Because to me, to us, mutual aid is revolutionary altruism. Mutual aid is seeing a need that others have that maybe we don't, and doing something about that need. Mutual aid is taking action to care for others. Mutual aid is allowing yourself to receive care from others. And how or why is that a transformative uprising? For that matter, what is a transformative uprising? Remember that transformative means causing a change in someone or something, and uprising means either an act of rebellion or resistance, or rising up to a higher position, standard, or ground. A transformative uprising, to me, is all three of those definitions wrapped up in one. A transformative uprising is an act of rebellion or resistance that causes a change in someone's or something that results in those someone's rising up to a higher standard. In other words, it's going against what you're told by society or the government and changing someone's mind for the better, especially when you change so many minds that it changes society as a whole. We believe that mutual aid can change the world. We believe that when communities come together to offer their members support, help, and connection, that's when people become empowered and also change. Some people change by having their basic needs met and then being able to focus on improving their circumstances. Some people change by having someone listen to them and take an interest in them, and then being able to return the favor and feel in community with folks around them. Some people change by listening to others and then helping them directly. Some people change by listening to others and changing their minds about a type of person. Some people change by deciding to take action politically or socially. And mutual aid becomes a transformative uprising when enough people change that it changes society and changes the world. Revolutionary altruism, like mutual aid, drives this transformative uprising. And even if your revolutionary altruism isn't a formal, organized mutual aid effort, just reaching out to a neighbor to offer what you can give them, or to ask for what you need from them, even that is revolutionary altruism that can be a part of a transformative uprising. My pie-in-the-sky dream is that one day mutual aid won't be needed anymore. I dream of a world where we have changed enough minds and hearts that there is equality, that nobody wants for their basic necessities, that everybody has enough to live on and then a little bit more. I dream of becoming obsolete, of our skills at helping people find food and shelter not being needed anymore. I dream of all beings, all neurotypes, all disorders, all physical and mental and emotional abilities, all backgrounds, all current situations, all number of beings in a body. I dream of everyone and every many being accepted equally, being valued equally, and being cared for equally. I would love that more than anything. That is the transformative uprising I want to happen. That is my goal with our mutual aid work and our community organizing. I hope that some of you will join this goal, that you will change your hearts and your minds, that you will take action for one cause or another, that you will shape society into something better. I hope that you find meaning in the work. I hope that you find success in the work. I hope that you find others who want to join the work. And I hope that together, all of us united, we can transform this world from the bottom up. Thank you all for your attention during this presentation. I want to give a quick thank you to 3 systems who offered input on this presentation, especially on the section about accepting mutual aid: the Chris's, Mythochromos, and Singer of Dark. Any remaining issues and errors, of course, belong to us, the Esoteric, specifically me, Prism. I look forward to any questions you have.